Today, I talk with Mindaugas of Fireblocks, the world leader in infrastructure for institutional digital assets. We talk about how Fireblocks works to safeguard your assets without the risk of getting hacked, and also about the future of the blockchain space. Enjoy the episode. Hi, welcome to another episode of Kestoshi, and today we have Mindaugas of Fireblocks. Did I say that right?
Hi, Zubair. Yeah, you almost got that right. It's Mindaugas, but no offense taken.
Okay. Mindaugas. Okay, I've got it. Okay, could you tell us, uh, in your own words, what does Fireblocks do for people who've never heard of it?
Sure. So Fireblocks is basically an easy-to-use platform that helps builders to create innovative products on the blockchain and to support any business, whether it's a financial institution or an NFT platform, in the management of their day-to-day crypto operations.
Okay, so
And
when you say day-to-day business or NFT platform, could you give me an example? Is there any?
Yes, sure, absolutely. So basically, the idea behind Fireblocks platform is that it enables any sort of business that touches crypto or the blockchain, or let's call it digital assets because it's a wider encompassing term, to successfully run their operations in a
Mhm.
secure and operationally efficient way. So to give you an example, let's say you are a crypto hedge fund, right? And you need infrastructure that allows you to hold your digital assets securely, to be able to manage them safely, to be able to transfer them, basically to allow your business operations to be streamlined and to scale while doing everything in a safe and secure manner.
Mhm.
Same could be applied for an NFT platform. So, for example, you're an NFT issuer. You're issuing NFTs as part of your business, and you also need to have a place to safely keep those NFTs, to safely custody them. And this is where Fireblocks come into the picture because we allow you to achieve just that.
So how was this done in the old days? Because I do remember several years ago, um, speaking with some guys who had the crypto custody business, and they were literally going from town to town with passwords and hardware ledgers. Has things changed since those days?
Yes, so the things have changed quite a lot. This is not to say that those sort of businesses don't exist anymore. I'm still sure that there's plenty of crypto that is stored in actual physical vaults somewhere in the Swiss mountains. And I guess we should probably take a small step back here and define what it actually means by securing your crypto, because as you and me know, all of the digital assets, they actually live on the blockchain. So you're not really taking them and putting them somewhere in a ledger, in a wallet, in a vault. They're always on the blockchain.
Oh, it's not like
However,
gold. It's not like gold, you're saying, where you're
no,
physically taking your
absolutely
Bitcoin
not.
and lifting it.
No, absolutely not. Everybody knows where the Bitcoin is. You can go on the internet, you can open up the Bitcoin block explorer, and you can put in a wallet address. Now, I believe even Google allows that. If you put in an Ethereum deposit address, you can into the search bar, you can straight away see which block it belongs to. So everything's on the blockchain. However, the thing that you need to keep safe is your private key, which acts essentially as a password to that part of the digital asset that you actually own. So this is what you need to secure. So going back to your question, in the old days, it was done in a little bit more of a crude way, right? People would say that the most secure way would be to have an actual offline wallet that is not connected to the internet. Sometimes people would just use a piece of paper on which they would write down their private key and then store it in a safety deposit box, or keep it under the mattress. But obviously we see the risks related to that. You can lose it, somebody can steal it from you. If it's a piece of paper, get wet and disintegrate. Same for these hardware devices that are like USB sticks, for example, that store your private key. Again, they can malfunction, you can lose them. Also, there's a lot of risk related to one particular person that's responsible for keeping it safe for you. So things have evolved quite a lot from there. The whole wallet infrastructure has improved, become safer. Additional security measures have been invented and created. And what we do at Fireblocks, we have our patented multi-layer security system, which basically uses several things to secure our customers' digital assets. So one layer is the actual encryption of that private key that we talked about, to make sure that nobody from the outside has an opportunity to hack it. Then secondly, there is what we call a transaction authorization policy. So for companies that transact in digital assets, there is a policy which is like an off-chain security governance layer that basically protects the customers not only from external threats, but from inside threats and human error as well. It dictates every transaction that you can do with your digital assets, and protects you from any errors that you can do or any malicious inside actors.
Okay. So this is only for businesses and not for individuals. Is that correct?
At Fireblocks, correct. We deal with institutions.
Okay. And why wouldn't an institution do this themselves?
Because it's very expensive to build, and also not just expensive, it requires tremendous resources, a lot of developer talent. It took many years to build these systems and to improve them. So it is expensive and very resource intensive as well.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
And another thing also is, you have to, if you really want to use the safest system, it has to be battle tested. So if you create something from scratch, and as a technical person yourself, I'm sure you appreciate how easy it is to accidentally leave some errors in the code, and then you only find out about them later. And when it comes to security, you can't really allow yourself to have any errors there, because then once it's discovered, it can be too late. And we can see that from pretty much every day on the news when we hear about all these different hacks that are happening on various digital assets, whether they're exchanges or protocols and etc. And a lot of them have something to do with the error in, either in the smart contract or at the protocol level. So the safest way is to have a battle tested system, and it requires time, effort, trial and error to build something like that. So it's a very risky endeavor for an institution that controls huge sums of digital assets to start doing it from scratch themselves.
Okay, I'd like to come back to this part a bit later. But I think I really do understand what you're doing now. I think that's a good explanation. Now, could you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to this point with Fireblocks and how you got into crypto?
Sure, absolutely. So I started my career in a completely different industry. Well, I guess it won't be different to many people that work in crypto, because quite a lot of people working in our industry currently, they come from banking or finance, and this is where I happen to come from as well. So I actually started my career in a traditional financial data company, where I worked for a couple of years, and afterwards I moved into a broker. I was on a fixed income trading desk, and after a few years there, I moved into an investment bank where I was basically doing the same role. I was on the fixed income sales and trading desk. And whilst working there, I was always amused how the technology that was being used in banks and brokerages was actually not keeping up the pace with the technological development that we were seeing outside of the banking industry, with everything moving really fast, with new products being developed all the time. Banks and traditional finance institutions always seem to be a little bit behind that. And I
Oh,
was
so
always
so
interested.
did people really feel it? Like, could you see crypto and what was it called, fintech? Was there a bit of jealousy when you were working in a big institution?
I guess it depends on who you ask. For people on the trading floor,
Mm,
you could definitely see that the industry was changing. And I'm not
mm,
talking about crypto specifically at this point. I'm more referring to how the general trading systems were developing. Everything was becoming a lot more electronic. So, you would go from the old way of doing business where, you'd pick up the phone, you'd call your client, you'd
mm,
agree on a trade, and then you would once the trade was done, you would input that into the
mm,
system, whether a Bloomberg terminal or some
mm,
other system. All of that was becoming less and less personal. So let's say less and less time on the phone and more time on the actual chat room
mm,
on the Bloomberg terminal,
mm,
and even that was slowly dying out and moving fully electronic, where clients would just submit a request to multiple dealers. They would automatically get some quotes back. And basically, you wouldn't even need a person in the middle to facilitate that trade as you did, several years back. So that's one part of things, and the other side of the whole process in traditional finance was to do with settlements. So the
mm.
whole settlement system is also something that's a little bit aged, a little bit antique, if you can call it that way. Multiple people, multiple counterparties have to be involved. Settlement times aren't immediate, as you know.
Mm.
Errors can be made, trades have to be unwinded, etc., etc. So seeing all of that and having a general interest in technology, I also, happened to stumble upon crypto. I wasn't, I cannot claim that I was one of the early people in the game. I wish that I was, but
What
unfortunately
year
I
did you get
wasn't.
in? What year was it?
So I have to say the first time I heard about crypto, and I probably heard about it before, but the first time it properly caught my attention was probably around 2015 or 2016.
Mm,
But I have to admit, at that time, I dismissed it.
mm,
Probably like many people, especially
mm,
the ones working in traditional finance, I simply couldn't understand it, and I didn't feel that I need to put in any time in trying to understand it. I was just thinking that we have this so-called digital currency.
mm,
What's the point of it? Wasn't really sure about it, so I forgot about it for a couple more years. And
mm.
then when the pandemic hit, and we all were spending quite a bit of time at home, and all of a sudden found ourselves with extra free time, I properly started getting into it and going
Mm,
down the rabbit hole.
mm.
And that's when it became really, really interesting to me.
Oh wow! So you slowly got hooked into it, and then what attracted you? And then from there, from learning at home, how did you end up at Fireblocks?
Sure. So, what really attracted to me wasn't even the speculative nature of digital assets. It
Mm,
wasn't, the idea that, oh, you can buy Bitcoin or
mm,
Ethereum, and
mm,
perhaps it will go up, and you'll become very wealthy. All
mm,
of that is very interesting, of course.
mm,
But for me, as I was going deeper down the rabbit hole, it was actually the blockchain technology
mm,
and the things that it can enable you to do,
mm,
which is essentially a blockchain technology is essentially allowing us to take it's how do you put this, it's a technologically empowered consensus mechanism
mm,
that we can recreate in the on the blockchain and make it permissionless, so we can reach consensus with people that we don't know, that we've never saw, without ever needing to trust those people.
mm,
And everybody can participate.
mm,
Nobody has to give you permission, nobody has to grant you access. Everybody can participate in the consensus mechanism, and it can be applied to basically all sorts of processes, from voting, governance mechanisms, the way how we create and share art. I'm
mm,
referring to NFTs now.
mm,
And all of these things. That's what made me really, really interested in it.
Mm.
And then at some point in late 2021, the opportunity presented itself for me to apply for a job at Fireblocks. And even though I haven't worked in the industry before, because I already had some knowledge and some understanding about what this whole business was about, I was really, really interested, and I jumped on the opportunity and ended up working in Fireblocks.
Well, I think you picked a good company for sure. Okay, so could you tell us a little bit about? I mean, we know what Fireblocks does. Could you tell us what the status is, like how big the market is and how they're doing and what sort of things are happening at the moment?
Sure, sure. So, how big the market is, we can start from that. So obviously, the crypto market as a whole, it came down from, I believe, what was it, around 3 trillion. Now it's closer to one. So obviously, we're not in the best times for crypto if we think about it in a traditional sense. And by saying traditional sense, I'm referring to looking at the charts and seeing where the asset prices are. So looking at that, we might think that, okay, the market has shrunk. However, if we look at it in the broader sense, the market is booming. It is huge. I know it might be an unusual thing to say, and it's my opinion, but there's so many use cases out there that are actively being built, actively being created, imagined, thought out, and put into practice that we might not even hear about every day. But we at Fireblocks, we constantly speak to the builders, and we're constantly exposed to all of these new use cases that are being built right now and that are going to appear in the general media. People are going to find out about them very shortly. So things, and some things are already in existence. For example, if we think of use cases like payments, right? So this is something that has been booming, has been really growing as of late, and that involves using a stablecoin, for example, to facilitate cross-border payments that are quicker, that are cheaper than if done the traditional way, that are forever recorded on the blockchain, so you can always verify where they're coming from, where they're going. And this use case doesn't really care where the crypto digital asset prices are at the moment.
Could I pause you a bit there? Like talking about stable coins, could you explain why would, like, I've tried to explain stable coins to people, and people always say, yeah, but I can just use the bank. Could you explain in your own words why you think anyone should even care about stable coins?
Sure,
As a business,
absolutely. Sure, absolutely. So, first thing, I'll pick up on what you said when you said you can just use a bank. So it's not so easy to just go and use a bank. You first need to have a bank account or a certain agreement with a bank, and that is provided that the bank agrees to enter into business with you, first of all. Whereas if you're using a stable coin, this is permissionless. You don't need to have anybody's permission. You don't need to sign a contract with anybody to be able to participate on the blockchain. So that's one of the reasons. It makes the whole payment system a lot more open to a wider variety of participants.
So it's like instant banking. Instant banking. You're saying you get a bank account like that, in a way.
Well, it's not. It's not. It's not exactly a bank account. So an equivalent of a bank account on a blockchain would be a wallet, right?
Yes.
And yes, you can more or less instantly create yourself a wallet, whether you're using Fireblocks or you're a retail user like you and me, and we're using a great wallet. We can create it very quickly and easily. And right after we've done that, we can already receive a stable coin into our wallet, and we can send a stable coin to somebody else. So for example, if I was to pay you for a certain service, and I was living in let's say in Asia, and you yourself were living in the United States, and I wanted to make sure that I can pay you, or in that case probably you would want to make sure that the payment reaches you as quickly as possible without any obstacles, and also the fees that you and me paying are as low as they can be. So this is where we'd want to use something like stablecoin, because instead of waiting days for a wire transfer to happen, where a payment bounces from my local bank to some other bank, then to some other bank, and it's getting closer and closer to you, but the process can take days. And everybody who's a middleman, they take their a little cut of fees along the way. So we end up paying quite a bit. And if we do these transactions, now I'm bringing this back together to a business perspective, because you asked me, how a business would see this. You're not just doing one-off payment. You're constantly doing them as part of your day-to-day business, and these fees, they rack up. And over the years, you're just paying a ridiculous amount of money as costs just to make these transfers happen. Whereas
I heard about you through Damex of Gibraltar, because of course that's where we met at the Gibraltar crypto conference. Can I go to a security question there?
Sure.
If you're providing the infrastructure, what is to stop you from running off with the funds that you hold for someone else?
No, that's a very good question. So, and actually, it is an important question, because obviously, you should have those concerns about any provider. If you're, a potential business that's starting out or already active in digital asset space, and you're choosing a provider who you're planning to work with, you should absolutely ask that question every single time. And our answer to that is that we've built our system in a way that it's technologically impossible for us to run away with our customers' assets. You've heard the saying, not your keys, not your crypto. Your keys.
Well, yeah, because it's all these exchange hacks. That's how a lot of people, including myself, have lost crypto.
Oh, sorry to hear that, by the way.
Yeah, well, it's actually in the end, it's probably a good thing, because it means that it's forced the security to get better.
In Fireblocks, you have what is called a direct custody model. So that means that the customer is in control of the private keys, not us as a company. So what we do as
good.
a platform.
So you can't steal our money, even if you wanted to.
Exactly. Okay. We cannot. We don't have access to that.
Good.
So the first layer of the multi-layer security system that I was describing earlier, and by the way, the reason to have a multi-layer security system is to eliminate a single point of compromise. So even if somebody manages to find a crack in your system and they somehow take advantage of that, there are several other layers that prevent them from running away with the assets. And that not only applies to, outside hackers, but also to a potential employee collusion, as the scenario that you're describing now. So first of all, we're not in control of the private key. We help secure the private key using what's called MPC CMP encryption mechanism, and it's a mouthful. MPC stands for multi-party computation. Basically, what it does in a nutshell, it creates an off-chain derivation of the private key, and it creates 3 key shares of the private key. And to sign any transaction, to be able to move any of the assets, all of the 3 key shares, they need to agree. So they're solving a puzzle, and they all have keys to the puzzle, but they don't have the full information of each other. So even if, let's say, somebody managed to steal one of the key shares, they wouldn't be able to recreate the full private key. But the idea is that customer always has 1 key share with themselves. We have no access to that key share. and every transaction requires 3 out of 3 key shares to sign it. So we wouldn't be able to do anything.
Oh, I see. Okay. And does the customer have all of the key shares, or do you hold one of them?
No, no. Customer has 1 key share, and we
Mm,
host 2 key shares ourselves. This is for
mm,
security reasons. Again,
mm,
if somebody manages to,
mm,
if the customer's device gets compromised, or somebody manages to get access
mm,
remotely to the key share, or anything like that
mm,
happens, because they are distributed, and all 3 need to sign on the transaction, and they're also geographically distributed,
mm.
so it is close to impossible to compromise this mechanism.
Oh, I see. So the customer, their responsibility is they have to not lose their key, I guess.
That is correct, but also there's measures in place to help rescue the customer if that happens. If they lose their key share, then
Mm.
they have the ability to disable that key share and reassign it to another person in the organization.
Oh, okay. So there is a backup plan if they
Yeah,
lose that.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Key share
Okay, great.
rotation. Yeah, there's the soft recovery. There's also the hard recovery. So let's say this is also quite a good example of
Mm,
why direct custody is really the most safe way to secure your digital assets. Because even if you trust an institution who's a custodian, a sub-custodian, even if they have no malicious intent whatsoever, what happens if they go out of business? All
mm,
of a sudden they become insolvent. And
mm,
then you can't, you request them to get your assets back, but they're unable to pay you out. Not
mm,
of of any bad or criminal intent, but simply because they went under. Now, with direct custody model,
mm,
if we go out of business, let's say, God forbid,
mm, mm,
then there is also the hard key recovery procedure in place that
mm.
allows the customer to recover their private key and access their assets and move them out of the Fireblocks vaults and into somewhere else. So this is like in the worst case doomsday scenario.
Oh, one I was gonna ask if you tokenize things like houses, but before I get there, like you said that you're doing a lot of stuff with Web3, so um, I realize that a lot of your customers are finance companies at the moment, but there's a growing number of use cases in crypto which are nothing to do with, which are not financial at the core, but they use
Yes.
crypto. Are you also serving those sort of markets?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So it doesn't have to be financial or finance related at all. So, for example, as we spoke at the beginning of this podcast, you can apply blockchain technology for uh, almost like an unlimited number of use cases. So it could be that there is, let's say, a governance example, a decentralized autonomous organization, a DAO,
Mm,
who they issue, as part of how they operate, they issue governance tokens. So those governance tokens that are distributed to the members of the decentralized autonomous organization, and whenever the organization has to vote on any decision on the future, or on the business product, or on a future course of the whole organization, their voting rights are represented by the tokens. However, the fact that they have the tokens means that they need to have a place to securely store those tokens. They need to have a system to manage those tokens. For example, uh, if just keeping to the example of governance,
mm,
if more members join the organization and they
mm,
also need to receive new tokens, then the organization, they'll have to mint, or
mm.
in other words, issue additional tokens. So they'll need to have a system that will allow them to do that. Similar way, if they need to reduce the supply, they'll need to do what's called burning a token.
What sort of things are you seeing that people want to tokenize that people wouldn't
Oh, it could.
expect on the blockchain?
Sure, absolutely. So houses is a good example. I think it was recently, maybe in the last couple of weeks, when it was on the news that somebody Somebody was selling a house on, I think, on OpenSea or one of the NFT exchanges in the form of an NFT. So that's just one example, but you can essentially tokenize anything. So anything that is a contract or is an asset, anything that has any value attached to it, and anything that is exchangeable. So any instrument that you can use as an exchange of value, you can also replicate it onto the blockchain. So for example, we've seen big traditional asset managers tokenize their funds, their UCIT funds, and put that on the blockchain. And people would ask, why do you need to do that? And the answer comes back to the principles of blockchain and digital assets. It makes everything more open, so you can open up your market to more participants, to more investors. You can fractionalize the investment. So, for example, another real world asset. There are companies that tokenize luxury items. For example, somebody has a very expensive watch or a very expensive vintage car, and they want to create a fund for investors that can invest into those assets, but maybe not everybody has tens or hundreds of thousands to deploy and buy one asset as an investment. But they can get, with blockchain, they can get exposure to that by investing smaller amounts, because when you tokenize something, you can then fractionalize that token into smaller parts and distribute it to more investors that have less capital to spare. But because of that, they still can get exposure to that that asset class.
But I guess if you're tokenizing things in the real world, then you also need to have measures in place. For example, what happens if, well, I guess it's harder to hack the NFT holder if they're doing it through your platform, but what happens if the car in the real world gets stolen? You have to handle, real life meeting digital.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think this is a big challenge that is in the process of being solved. But absolutely, there's so many aspects that come into play. It's definitely not an easy operation. It's not just the actual tokenization is the easy bit. It's easy to create a token and assign it to a specific asset. But you're absolutely right. You have to think about how to protect that asset, how to maintain that asset in the real world. But you could also say that this can be applied to any other security, any other contract. So for example, if you buy a house as an investment and you don't do it on the blockchain, you just do it in a traditional way. So you've got your contract, you have your deed, everything has been done. You still need to maintain the house. You still need to insure the house. You still need to make sure that it doesn't break down, that squatters do not move into your house, and and all of those other things that you need to consider. So tokenization essentially is just a way to take the traditional contracts that we used to have and make them more efficient, more open, more permissionless, and basically improve the whole process that has to do with investing in those assets. But that doesn't mean that you have to stop thinking about the actual real world considerations, because it's a real world asset. You have to have real world considerations for it. My personal opinion, it's really difficult to say where the industry is going to be in 5 or let alone 10 years, because everything is moving and changing at such breakneck speed that I think that the use cases we're seeing now and the use cases that we're even thinking about are not necessarily going to be the use cases in 5 or 10 years. So the scenario that you're describing, it is definitely something that could be an option from, the universe of all scenarios that could happen. I would not dismiss any scenario. And I think it is up to us, people that working in the industry, people that are building the tools of the industry, and people like yourselves that, has this podcast that is there to educate others. It is up to us to make sure that we always push it to the right direction, because what you're describing sounds a little bit like a dystopian, like a dystopian world. And if we, if this is if you let this go, same as everything, to me, crypto and blockchain, it's not a product, it's a tool, it's a toolkit. We've discovered this new toolkit, after Satoshi wrote his white paper. We discovered this new toolkit, and since then it's been a thought experiment of what we can do with it. Can we create create value out of it? Can we create a means of exchange, a store of value? What's being done with Bitcoin? Well, it's debatable. Is Bitcoin a good store of value with the volatility that it experiences? Maybe it's more as an investment. But this always constantly develops. Similar to, let's say, IDs. Sure, we can put IDs on the blockchain, and is this going to hold? Is this going to be a good idea? Well, it's up to us to try and make it that way, that that once the final product is created, it's for the benefit of everybody.
So do you think crypto will just be used everywhere, and it'll be in the background, and so everything people do, like get a coffee, scan a reward card, do this, it will all just have crypto in the back end?
I think that society and businesses are very good at taking whatever is being thrown at them and removing, only keeping the stuff that actually makes life a little bit easier, which can be, it is debatable if you think about social media and the ways that it captures our attention and shows us advertisements. But I think we're quite good choosing to stay with products and choosing to adopt products that actually makes things more smooth, makes things easier, our day-to-day lives easier. So if it's going to become easier to pay for coffees using crypto, then yes, I think that's going to be the future. So Fireblocks is a very global organization. We have offices all over the world. So you can find us wherever you are. So you can go on our website, which is www.fireblocks.com. You can also find us on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me directly, send me a message. I'd love to talk to you and tell you more about the products and the solutions that we have. And that would be the best way.
Okay, great. So, all right, thanks a lot for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Was happy to be here. It was nice talking to you, Zubair.
Thanks.